On this episode of Jeff Kelderman's Garage, we're going to drive the Kyle Petty Charger. Hey, Jeff Kelderman here. Welcome to my garage. For each episode, we're going to sit down, we're going to grab a hot rod, bike, a race car, and we're going to sit down and talk about how I took this car and how we turned it into what it is today. And the prize in my collection, the original Joe Dirt movie car. So when you got deer tape tattooed on your ribs and this car comes up for sale at Barrett Jackson, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. And I did. Speaking of American muscle, we've even got Kyle Petty's high school car right here. Hell, even my wife's car's 550 horsepower. We're even going to get out of the garage a little bit. We got a couple special places this thing's going that you're really gonna like. You're gonna follow me to the racetrack and see how good or maybe not so good a driver I am. You're gonna see a lot of Viper action. 6-speed, old school, no traction control. What could go wrong? Man, you can just imagine Kyle Petty, the long flowing hair. 1977, 1978, cruising around, terrorizing the back roads of Randleman, North Carolina, and this car right here. I met Kyle Petty in 2002. It was my first year on the Kyle Petty charity ride, and I have not missed a day since. Matter of fact, we actually stopped here this year on the 28th annual Kyle Petty charity ride across America. Started in Deadwood and at the Victory Junction gang camp. Victory Junction gang camp, something near and dear to my wife and I heart. It's just one of the most magical places on earth where kids that are chronically ill can go for a week and escape to a camp that's catering to their disabilities. And at the end of the week, those kids will come out of that and hugging their parents and thinking, you know what, this was the most fun I've had in my entire life. I don't want to leave. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let the man himself tell you about some of the stories he had. Well, hey, we got Kyle Petty here, and obviously the show is about his old high school car. So he's going to tell us a couple cool stories. He's going to tell us how he got it. And Kyle's always entertaining. Good friend of mine. I've known him for over 20 years now.
Is that how we're starting? We're starting that we're friends. You want everybody to know we're friends. Is that what you're saying? Yes, we are.
Okay, don't be bashing my show. I got a lot riding on that we're really friends.
No, I'm not bashing the show, man. How long have we known each other? We've known each other.
02, Sonoma, first one.
02. Man, you know what? So we've been doing the charity ride since 95, and it feels like we've been there since 95, and that's a compliment.
Yeah.
That's not a slam, man. And then we got to go by your place this year, which is phenomenal. You want to talk about that car. So here's what happened with that car. What is that car? 69?
70.
70. See? Shows you how much I know about it, man. So it's 1970. So here's what happened with that car. I had an uncle, my Uncle Randy, and he was 5 years older. And he had a 55 Chevy. Man, I love that 55 Chevy. When he first got his license, that's all he wanted. Then he had a Road Runner right after that. And then he ended up with this Charger, and this Charger was the best. Each time he got a new car, it was cool. When I was 14, he would have been about 20, right? I was 19, 14, right when we turned 15. Randy was killed on pit road during a pit road accident in Talladega, and I ended up with his car and with his heart. It's kind of my mom ended up with some of it, my aunt ended up with some of it. His parents, my grandparents didn't really want to keep anything around, so I ended up with that Charger and sat in the building back there for a little while. And when it come time to get my license, I drove a 50 Plymouth for the first 3 or 4 months because we were working on this Charger.
Right.
And we couldn't figure out what to do with this Charger because everybody where I live, he had that redneck radio.
Yep.
Jacked up in the back. It was like
that Joe Dirt car.
Yeah. So but that's what everybody had. Right?
Yep.
They had that deal, man. That was the look. So we were at the shop one day, and Richie Barnes and those guys said, "Here's what we're gonna do with this. We're gonna roll this thing. We're gonna put this thing on the ground." We put this thing on the ground in 1970. God, that would have been 75 because I got the license in 76. That would have been 75. We put this thing on the ground when nobody put cars on the ground.
Right.
Nobody. I couldn't get in and out of the race shop. We had speed bumps. I had to drive in the grass around the race bumps.
Oh, wow.
Because the thing would drive. But so we snatched the engine out of it. And while we were working on the car, my uncle put a cam in it and set of heads on it. He had laying around up there, and it was a what was it? A 283.
383.
Yes.
So is that when you're talking about Uncle? You're talking Maurice?
Do what?
So did Maurice work on this motor?
Yeah. So he worked. So I don't know what's in it right now. So I'm gonna be totally honest because I don't know what Rutledge did. There's somebody in between us. There's a couple of people in between us. But,
Right.
But so we had had a 383 in it. He put a set of heads on it, the cam on it. It got when I was in high school. When I drove that thing to high school, it would get about 3.5 miles per gallon. Gas, dude. I can't even begin to tell you. How cool this thing is. Okay. And it was like I used a quarter of a tank to go 10 miles to school.
That's awesome.
So anyhow, so we fixed the fenders just like we did on a cup car. Because on a cup car during that time, you had stock body panels. So we just came to the top character line and just split the rear ones and split the front ones. And you would take, and if the tire was here, and the original fender set that close, you would just pull it out and then add a piece in the top. Add a piece to give you that wheel clearance. And then you Bondo it, man. It was a fabricator's dream with Bondo.
Yep.
Because you Bondo that thing back in. But we lowered that thing, had to work on the front suspension a little bit. We just got it close. We weren't interested in ever doing anything with it, so we just got it close, lowered the rear, and just, it rode like the back of a pickup. That's no joke, dude. But nobody cared.
Yep.
Because it was the baddest butt around. And I will never forget, we took that thing, they were building the bypass, the interstate around at the time. And it was closed. It was closed up, and two things happened. This kid had a friend that had a smoke engine bandit, Trans Am.
Oh, yeah?
Big bird on the hood, and he thought he was bad as well. So we go to Asheboro one day. So we get out on the interstate. It's closed. We just drive around the thing. We're going to race down to Asheboro, which is about 5 miles. So we're in high school, and the football team, we're going down to do a thing. So Ronnie's in his car. He's got Scott in his car. He's on the passenger side. They got somebody in the back seat. I don't know who they got. And it's me in my car and a friend of mine named Phil. And we're the only two in my car. So we take off and Ronnie's home. We got the windows down in these things, and we're running side by side. Scott's screaming across to us. Is that all you got? Is that all you got? Is that all you got? And we run up and it kind of levels out about, they probably leveled out about 120, 130, out of something like that. And I told Phil, I said, scream at him, see if that's all he's got. So Phil screams across from me. I'm driving like this, and Phil screams, and he's like, is that all you got? And you can hear Ronnie, and Ronnie's like, I got nothing else. And Phil says, we're in third gear. So I called fourth gear, and we went on. This thing had 100, what's it got on the speed on? 160, 170, 160?
I believe it's 160.
Yeah, we pegged the speedometer and it was still pulling away. At that point, there's no telling how fast that car ran that thing. I mean, I don't have a clue. I sold the car to another guy right after that, not long after that. I ended up selling the car, and he got stopped. He was clocked at 168.
Oh.
And he was clocked at 168, and they set up a roadblock for him. I mean, it was vanishing point S.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where they blocked the road and everything. And he got stopped. They confiscated the car. So the state of North Carolina had the car for a while. I will say that. That's another piece of history for the car. Because they confiscated it, but then Roger got it back. That car would fly, man. That car. But it had you couldn't run a quarter. You couldn't run, everybody wanted to race. We had another kid from a local school, and he had a glimmer, and he kept wanting to race, and I was just laughing, and my dad told me, don't race, and then you get
So the king, Richard Petty, the greatest race car driver of all time, telling his son, "Don't be out there racing, son."
Don't race. So finally, this kid kept coming, and I told him, I said, okay, we'll race for titles. It's a title race. If you want to do it, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to lead. But still, it was a perfect time because we had the interstate that was not open, so it was close. So you could get out there and run 10 miles, and there's no other cars on the road, nothing on the road there. So we decided we would race from Randleman, from the exit at Randleman High School, up to Level cross the bridge, turn around and go out. That was going to be the race. So we talked about this for a month, man. I mean, it wasn't like you just rolled up and said, let's do this. So we talked about it. So he took off, and it was funny, man. He took off. I wasn't even in the car when he took off. I wasn't in my car. So again, I had Scott and Phil with me. We jumped in the car, man, buckled up, hauled the mail. We passed him somewhere about halfway up we passed him. And then I went across the bridge and was coming down the other side and met him he was on the other side, met him on the other side. And he never came back. He never came back. He never came back around. I don't know where he got off or where he went to. And we saw him about 4 or 5 months later, and he said, "You're not gonna take my car." I said, "No, I'm not gonna take your car, dude." I said, "There was no way I was ever gonna take your car. I just needed to show you that you weren't even in the same league with this car.
Well,
you may be a better driver. You may know how much, but you're not in the league with this."
I don't know whether I should admire this guy for trying to build a street cred or just think, man, you're running against a car that was built the king Richard Petty shot. You're not going to beat it.
I know. I don't know why people. I think people thought if they did beat it, it would be something special. You know what I mean? I mean, if you could outrun it, it would be something cool. But I'm telling you, man, you got this car.
Yeah.
I got this one. You know what I mean? I mean, just arrow-wise, I'm gonna beat you. Just before he even.
Yeah.
I could have had a force somewhere, but it was crazy, man. That car was a good car. That was good. But I'm gonna tell you what, I got stopped. This is one night, they wouldn't stop me. I had to go to the local police station. They wouldn't set up a roadblock and stop me. They would just try to catch me. And one night, in my early days with that car, I got caught 3 times in town. And I'd had a license about a month and a half. And I got caught 3 times and I just stopped, you know. And then after that, I just quit stopping. And I'd see them, man. I'd see them at the hamburger joint, or I'd see them down at the grocery store if I was picking something up for my mom, and they were like, "We're gonna get you again." And they never got me again. They got me that first time like 3 times in one night, and then they just never. But it was just a game. We were in a small enough town and in a wide enough area that it wasn't going to hurt it. You know, we were only going to hurt ourselves. And that was stupid. Don't get me wrong, but it was a perfect time to grow up.
I will say that. Sometimes I said, high school muscle car race. I think I was born a few years late because, man, I'm just kind of reliving all this stuff. So I just have to take it easy because nowadays they'll throw your ass in jail, take away your license. It's not any fun.
Yeah. So see, here's the deal. We always knew this. Even when I was coming along, it was that you can't outrun the radio. You know,
correct.
You might outrun that guy in that car, but you're not going to outrun the cop's radio when he radios ahead 10 miles. You can't beat that radio. And that was the cool part about some of the law enforcement that lived in our area. They didn't care about the radio. They were going head to head. You know, it was back to the same thing. We're going head to head with you. We're not going to beat the radio. We're not going to use the radio to beat you. And it's funny because when I grew up, everybody had the Chevelles, the SS, the Novas. I had those Novas. Those freaking Novas fly. You know what I mean? You had the Mustangs, the slope-back Mustangs.
Yep.
66, right along there. Those things, that was it. Those cars, I mean, everybody had a Mustang car with Steve McQueen and the movie Bullet.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what they thought. But it was just Camaros, everything they had back then. Those are good cars, man. Those are good cars on a country road in the middle of nowhere to have fun.
Right, but
and now but now you know there's 10 million cars on the road. You can't do any of that stuff.
Right. Well, the thing is, you think back, and of course you probably know a lot of guys that crashed a lot of those old muscle cars, whereas your car was set up by a professional race team where you could go and do your car would out handle these guys, not even in the same league. I mean, you just basically got a street legal race car with a lot of NASCAR Cup motor parts on it, and you're driving around just what a great time.
Yeah, because you go back to it, and you didn't have that. You know how old cars were, and the problem with muscle cars, a lot of muscle cars, is the power outran the suspension, and those things they get that float.
Yep.
You get up to speed, they get that float.
Yep.
But like a luxury car, at 115 miles an hour, you're just
yep.
And the shocks couldn't keep up. The frequencies of the shocks couldn't keep up. But once you dropped that thing down and made it solid, then you lowered the CG.
Exactly.
So obviously, race people knew what that was. Road cars didn't know what that was because it didn't need to. You just didn't need to. And there's kids that have more power, and everybody worked on engines. Nobody worked on suspension. Now, and it's like your business. You work on suspension.
Yep.
And suspension totally changes the vehicle. And back then, you go through an Eli Whitney magazine or catalog, dude. You could get a chain steering wheel and a gas pedal that looked like a foot. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't get extra springs and extra stuff.
No, you're not getting any. You're not getting suspension components.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time and telling us about the hot rod because I was talking to Rutledge yesterday about this. It's staying in the family. I told him that either I'm going to die with it, or if that happens, then it's going back to Rutledge because we're keeping it.
That's the amazing part about it. Because here's the thing, my uncle had it, then I had it, and then Roger had it. Roger Heigl had it, and Roger went to school with my mom, so he had it. He was older, and we got it back. It was mine, and Rutledge ended up with it. Now it's yours. So it is gone. In all honesty, and I say this because we are friends, and we've been friends for a long time. I love it, I do. But it's funny, it's just traveled in a really small circle. The best part is everybody it goes to, it gets another story.
Yep.
It has another layer. Someday that's going to be the book, the 70 Charger. And it's going to be all of us. We just need to condense our stories and throw it in there for what we did in this one car.
Yep. Well, that's awesome, brother. Well, you have an awesome day, and episode's coming out tomorrow on Friday around noon, so you have to check it out.
Let me know, babe.
All right. We'll see you later, buddy.
Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, how's Kelly?
Really good. Hey, yep, great.
Tell her I said look, and I'm gonna tell you what, man, we had a blast at your place. Please know that.
I know. We're incorporating a lot of stuff with the camp and the drone and the visit here, so it's going to be a fun episode. I can't wait.
Yeah, cool, dude. All right, let me know, dude.
All right. We'll see you. Bye-bye. All right, so hey, we got Rutledge Wood here, and he is a good buddy of mine that I begged for 3 years to finally get him to sell me the Kyle Petty Charger, and he's got buyer's remorse every single day of his life now.
Every single day. It's worse when I got to visit you in Iowa and see the car. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone's so excited. Hey, the Joe Dirt car's here. I was like, yeah, that car's amazing. But did you see this other one? It was right next to it. But turns out we both have a mutual friend in Kyle. When I found that car, it was in Kyle's barn. It would have been, I bet the first time I saw it was maybe 05 is probably 06. And
oh, wow.
Kyle had bought that car from his uncle's widow. His uncle had that car, and his uncle got killed at Talladega on pit road. And Kyle will have to tell you that story. It's pretty incredible. But Kyle bought the car. He was 14 years old, and he started working on the car at the shop at Petty Enterprises after high school. Like after school, he'd get home. And
right.
He was trying to do all these tricks and things to it, which were the same things that they were doing the race cars, which is get the thing lower, make it wider. So they did this thing to the fenders. He called it pie cutting. They were pie cut fender flares. The idea is you would make a T and you would stretch the metal out to where you wanted it to be. Well, looking from the side, how wide it would be.
Right.
Fill in that gap on the bottom part, but the part that was left over in the top where they had cut it and you now had to roll a piece in, the metal that you would make, it looked like the edge of a pie tin. So they called it pie cutting the fender flares. And I was like, oh, well, this is awesome. So it was flared out. It was on some like 15-inch American Racing. I think they were magnesium, which are really hard to find because they didn't do so great. But it was a 383 4-speed car, and he got it down on the ground, right? So I see it. He had sold it when he started racing. So I think he sold it when he was 18. He bought the thing back. I think it had an old cup gear in the rear end. I can't remember what else they had done. It sounded great though. So his son Austin wanted it. Kyle always told me, you won't get this car. It's too dangerous, too fast for you. And I was like, oh, okay. So Austin, he gives the car to Austin, and Austin takes it to Petty's garage, and they fix it up for him a little bit. And so I think I bought it from him. Gosh, I don't remember what year this would have been. 2012, 13, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I think maybe 14. So I got the car and loved it, but I was like, okay, so it's got drum brakes all the way around.
Right.
There's sort of a suggestion. It would stop, but it didn't stop that well. And I loved the thing, but I was like, I got to fix this up a little bit. So, you do that thing where everyone goes, okay, I want to fix up, but I don't want to destroy any of the like real charm about it. How do I do this the right way? Well, for me, I looked at my sponsors first. Magnaflow, they did a custom exhaust on there, put an Odyssey battery in it. And then it was like, okay, what kind of little stuff can I do? And I took it to my friend Randy Allgood that owns a Kenwood rod shop. And we got underneath there and looked at parts available. I called Ride Tech because at the time, Brett used to own it.
Right.
Yeah, great guy, loves cars. And he was like, yeah, send it up here. We'll work on it. So we send it up there, ship it up there. And we did a complete Ride Tech suspension on there, did Willwood brakes all the way around it. And then I ordered a set of custom Forge Line wheels. Steve did a great job with those things. They're gorgeous. Wrapped it with Continental tires. And then I was like, okay, it's really close, but it needs a little something else. So I think that's when we called American Powertrain.
Matt Graves.
Right? Yeah, Matt, just what a great guy. And I kind of walked him through like, here's what I got. So I think we used a TKO 500. I think that's what's in there, right?
I think I think that is. I think, yep.
Because it's
that
a 5-speed.
right.
It's not a 6-speed, right? We went 5.
Correct, 5-speed.
Yeah. And I took it on the power tour, and it was so much fun. The best part was when I took it on the power tour, the year that we were going to do it, it actually was pretty close to you in Oskaloosa. So I shipped the car out there to you, and I think I shipped
was there a pickup too?
My Tundra. That's right. I had my wide body Toyota Tundra with it, and we picked those two up and drove those on the Hot Rod Power Tour. And man, there's nothing cooler than being in a 70 Charger that now has the power to go fast, to stop, to handle right, everything. I mean, it completely changed that car. But to rip through some of those cornfields that we did, the little highways that run all through there, doing a good speed, I'll just say it.
I know, it was a blast. I still got some pictures for it, and insert picture here.
Yeah, dude, it was so much fun. But like, it was so cool to get to come out and see you, to see the car. You picked us up in your shack truck. Me and my brother-in-law got to come out there. You picked us up at the airport, and it was just the coolest trip ever. But man, it's one of those things where I have a hard time. I love cars and I have a bunch of them, but you understand this too. It's hard when you love cars and they sit because you're either traveling or working, whatever. And that just kind of breaks your heart. And you always said, hey, tell me if you want to sell it. Tell me if you want to sell it. Our friend George Flanagan was a little mad, I think, that I sold it to you before I could sell it to him. But I didn't know that he wanted it. You would literally send texts like once every month and be like, hey, bro, just want to let you know, ready to take that Charger off your hands.
You heard him. I didn't tell him to say that. Yeah,
right. The fact that you and I have gotten to share that car and that legacy, pretty amazing, man.
You got it. All right, my man. Well, I'm going to let you go.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Take care, brother. Love you.
See you, brother. See you guys.
Let's get this thing out, do a little driving. I'll tell you some more cool stories. Let's go for a ride. Dodge Plymouth ever did is they came out with that pistol grip 4-speed. Well, this car's been upgraded to the Tremec 5-speed conversion by American Powertrain, which gives you a little better gear ratio, gives you an overdrive on the top end, so you're only running a couple thousand RPMs at 65 mile an hour. But man, how cool is that? You just lay down the hammer, shift the gears, baby. Woo! Kyle Petty coming down the back stretch of Daytona 500. Actually, just Jeff Kelderman burning up the back roads of Oskaloosa, Iowa. Not quite as exciting, but so we're gonna pull into my buddy's warehouse here. He's giving us a little permission to make some noise today and do some burnouts. These may or may not be our burnouts from the last time we were here, but you know, gotta have some fun somehow. Still got a little pop to her. I fell in love with this car in June of 2017. My good buddy Rutledge, who I met on the Kyle Petty charity ride about 4 years earlier, was jumping on the Hot Rod Power Tour, and it was going to go through Iowa. So he shipped this up to my shop, and obviously he wanted a secure place for it to sit. So from the minute I jumped in this thing and backed it off the trailer, I'm like, oh my God, I got to figure out a way to buy this thing. We spent the next couple days on the Hot Rod Power Tour, riding with Rutledge, and man, I had an absolute blast. You know, a couple gearheads, we're really on the same page when it comes to building hot rods. Just a great time. Really got to know the car. You know, spent a little time under the hood, but you know, it's just one of those things. Is like, you know, you ought to probably sell me this thing. Well, Rutledge hadn't had this car all that long, so he's like, dude, I'm not selling this thing. I'm never going to sell this thing. So I bugged him a little bit, you know, every 2-3 months, send Rutledge a text. You going to sell this to me? You ready to sell? You ready to sell? And finally, spring 2020, I got that text. Price is fair, you know, a little more than what I wanted to spend, but you know, you can't put a price on something that's cool. Kyle Petty drove in high school. So the thing that sets this thing apart from all other Chargers is this has actually been converted into a wide body. Kyle, as you heard in the story, pulled it into Petty's garage, grabbed some sheet metal guys who've been working on the King's car all day, massaged the body work on this so he can run bigger tires. And I tell you what, this thing has such a badass stance. You know, it's, you know, there's a million Chargers out there, and there's a lot of really, really customized hot rods, but this thing just looks fast sitting still, and that's what I absolutely love about it. Of all the muscle cars in my garage, this is the one I drive the most. You know, it's got a few dings, got a little bit of rust bubbles coming here, but I'm never going to repaint it, because how could you be sanding off stuff that was done 40 years ago in the King's garage? So you got a little time gap here between Kyle driving it and then Rutledge getting a hold of it 20 years later. So if you follow Rutledge Wood at all, you know that when he gets a car, he's not going to leave it alone. Now, he didn't want to touch the paint from the King's body shop. He didn't want to touch the motor because, you know, he had a few guys from Petty Garage working on that 383. But he wanted wheels, brakes, 5-speed transmission. That was the hit list of what he wanted to get done. So for rims, he chose Forge Line wheels. These are 18-inch rims. We're running 295, 35, 18s on the back. And as you can see behind these awesome Forge Line wheels, we've got Wheelwood brakes. When you got a fast car, you gotta have good brakes. These Wheelwoods, things stopping on a dime. A lot better than a couple of my other cars I own. So with the wide body, we got 275 35 18s on the front. Those are some massive front tires for a muscle car. The Wheelwoods on the front, they're 6 pistons. The Wheelwoods on the back are 4. Like I said, this thing stops better than any muscle car I've got. As you know, these 383s run like a bat out of hell, and this one's no exception. We got air conditioning, which I haven't charged, but it did work in 2017 on the Power Tour. We got Champion radiator here, aluminum, keeps this thing cool. You can drive it on the hottest of hot days in the summer. You got a muscle car, it's gotta sound mean. We got hooker headers and a full rear exiting MagnaFlow exhaust. So I sent this up to my good buddy Aaron up at Custom Sound and Image in Ankeny, Iowa. Man, he's the best in the Midwest. This guy puts together killer sound systems. I bet he's done 6 or 8 vehicles for me already. So we went with the Alpine subwoofer. He made me a little box here to take that wasted space in the trunk. We put a couple Kenwood amps in this thing, because we got a couple 6x9s in the back deck, and then we have a couple other speakers. I can't remember what they are. I think they're 4x6s, just because that's the only area we had. They're shoved up under the dash, and then all I'm running is a Bluetooth transmitter. So I just grab my iPhone, put it on, put the tunes on. I got my dial in the center console. So at center console, we put a little deal in there. We can put a couple can holders in there, you know, when I'm doing the do. Mountain Dew, I could use a sponsorship here for the show to help pay the bills. But anyway, when I'm doing the do, I got my 2 cup holders there. I got my subwoofer switch, you know, crank up some my buddy Kid Rock's tunes if we're going down the road. Leonard Skinner. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. This has got the old Dodge doors. They're loud, they're heavy. You got to slam these things. The bushings wear out a little bit in these doors, so they always drop just a little bit. I've got a bushing kit for it, but it's been sitting on the toolbox since about, I'd say, spring of 2020. So the Kyle Petty Charity Ride is a motorcycle ride that goes from coast to coast. So the money raised from this ride goes to the Victory Junction Gang Camp located in Level Cross, North Carolina. So the camp is a place for children with chronic illnesses that they can go to for a complete week for free and meet other children that have the same kind of illnesses that they have. For a lot of these kids, it's the first time they've ever met a kid that has a similar situation that they're in. They've actually, outside their house, they're actually on a kind of a vacation and actually getting to go to a camp like normal kids get to go to. And it's just, the place is magical. I mean, once you drive through and you go down Adams Way and you look around, I mean, the place, I get goosebumps just talking about it right now. One of the things they have with this camp is the kids come in crying because they're scared to leave their parents. But when the parents come to pick them up, the kids are crying because they don't want to leave their friends and they don't want to leave the camp. This year is the 20th anniversary of the Victory Junction Gang Camp. The camp was built in honor of Adam Petty, Kyle's son, who was killed in New Hampshire in an auto racing accident. Adam's dream, after visiting some of Paul Newman's hole-in-the-wall gang camps, was to build a similar camp in North Carolina for kids to enjoy. After Adam's tragic accident, Kyle knew that there was the best way he could honor his son was to make that dream come true and build that camp that he had always envisioned. So after 20 years, literally tens of thousands of kids have went through this camp. There are thousands of families' lives that have been changed because of the Victory Junction Gang Camp. So just like a kid going to camp, I myself had a dream come true this year. Kyle called me and asked me if on this year's Kyle Petty Charity Ride, if we would be willing to host the entire group at our facility here at Kelderman Manufacturing in Oskaloosa, Iowa. So our local business here in Oskaloosa, Musco Sports Lighting, great big massive company. They donate $28,000 to the camp. It was really a special day. You know, we gave, Kyle and Morgan always get keys to the city. Well, we gave them a key to the Kelderman complex. If you want to know some more information about the Victory Junction Gang Camp, it's victoryjunction.org. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kelderman Manufacturing. You can follow us at Kelderman Trucks. And on Instagram, I'm Jay Dierte.
There we go.